Anywho.
So this is one about questions.
It is.
I have a question for you. This is based on the one where we did a Lenormand reading.
Yep.
So we did a Lenormand reading in that one.
Yeah, we did.
How did it work out for you, that Lenormand reading?
Well, the Lenormand reading said, because we asked it about the week.
We did.
And it said that...
I might have, that's something I might have used my pencil for, to write down what it was.
I don't think so.
Balls. Having a book in this room seems to be utterly pointless. No, I didn't. I'm sure I did. Anyway,
maybe it was a different book. So we did a Lenormand card reading where we asked about the week that was coming up.
Yeah.
And it came up with stuff to do with charity or donations.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. Like charitable finance.
Yes, someone would be in touch with me
care about
charitable finance.
Yeah.
In some way or shape or form. And it would be a positive thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't clear really what that might look like.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was only 3 cards, to be fair to the cards.
Yes, that is fair. So I think it was like 2 days later, maybe. I had previously said I would host a charity quiz and chips.
Right.
People at work. So I would do all the work.
To raise money for a charity.
Right. I would do all the work. I'd put all the questions together and basically do all the entertainment. I've done it in the past.
Like being an MC.
Like being an MC. So I would do all of that for a quiz and chips for people. And the people who were organising it got in touch with me a couple of days after we did the Lenormand to say that they had to change the date and they were bringing it forwards. And was that okay? And I said I couldn't do it because could we make it further away rather than nearer? And they said, oh no, we have to do it on that day. So, shall we get someone else? And I said, yes, please. So in some respects, the thing for me was that I didn't have to do all of that work that I said I would do.
That's true.
Because it takes a long time to pull those together.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to do all of that for the charity quiz and chips. So yes, if we've talked before about looking for the confirmation and recognizing it when it comes. The Lenormand said someone would be in touch with me, something to do with charity.
That's right, a written communication.
Yeah, it would be good for me. And someone got in touch with me to say, effectively, you don't have to do the charity quiz and chips. So all that work that you normally do, all that time and effort that you normally put in. That's
thankless task we're asking for.
That is now given back to you. So thank you.
So that was positive.
So it was positive, yeah.
Brilliant.
Which is good, because I was kind of worried about what's going to happen. Am I going to have to give more money to things? How? Charitable finance? I'm not sure. Someone's going to write to me and say there's been a problem with your monthly direct debit that you have to these charities and therefore you're going to have to give more money or something. But no, it wasn't that.
Oh, well that
it was the gift of time. Hello.
We never say hello to each other when we start these,
Should we even say hello to the people listening? That's really rude.
We are so rude.
Oh my God. Sorry.
We have to get up our game, right?
Hello, everyone.
Because I've checked the camera, I've checked the mic, which are things that have been kind of going wrong in the last 3 episodes that we did.
All right.
So this is kind of like our olive branch of accepting our failures. We are sorry.
Sorry, everyone.
Sorry. We'll get better. So should we start by being polite and welcoming people? We should probably stop doing that.
Do we have to say merry meet?
No.
Okay,
no, we totally don't have to say merry meet. We can just be ordinary, which is a gentle chin jut.
I was going to say, just like...
Sup.
All right. All right.
Yes.
Hello, everybody, and
Hello.
welcome to That Magick Podcast.
That Magick Podcast. This is episode, I don't even know.
How many do we do in a season?
We do 8, so we're doing 7,
Yeah.
and then 8, and then that's it
for
season 3. So yeah, this is season 7?
Yeah,
Did I say
season 3,
Oh, shit.
episode... This is, you can tell we never do this. Welcome to season 3, episode 7 of That Magick Podcast.
Yes. The one about questions.
The one about questions, exactly. So this is one where you have a notebook, but I don't know why, because there's nothing in there that's going to help you.
Oh no, I don't even have the right glasses. I'll be swapping glasses if I need to look at stuff.
So this is an episode where we've had questions. People have written in and asked us some questions. So it's a mailbag, basically.
A mailbag,
as in
right.
an email bag.
Right,
Yeah.
I get it now.
Yeah, not
like a man bag
Not a
that
man
Joey
bag.
had in
No.
that episode of Friends that time. No, okay.
It's not a bum bag. It's a mail
Bum bag. You know they call them fanny packs in the States.
I do. I am not in the States. No disrespect to our colonial listeners.
God, don't say that. Don't call them that.
Sorry, it's just all a bit weird in the UK at the moment. No.
Oh, God, yeah. Ugh.
Welcome to all of our listeners around the world.
And on behalf of the UK, we'd just like to extend our apologies.
Sorry.
Sorry, everyone.
Sorry. But yes, we had questions. People have written in. They've asked us some questions. Well, I say us, mostly to you, because sadly, none of the questions we've had about pop culture.
I'm really surprised about that.
Yeah, well, never.
Because there are certain pop culture shows that are heavy on the magic that we never talk about.
That's okay. I don't mind. I fully recognise that my role in this whole thing is to ask inane questions and occasionally make bad jokes. Effectively try and derail things while you educate people and answer questions. So that's all good.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so we've had a number of questions. Most of them are about spellcraft, just so you know.
Okay.
There's a few other curveballs in there, so we'll see where we get to.
Blimey.
But yeah.
To be clear, I don't know what these questions are. So we're going to do this live on this recorded podcast.
Exactly. We're going to test your brain.
And my editing skills.
Very true. All right. Do you want to get straight into it?
Yeah. How are we going to superimpose the pop culture stuff on this? Or shall I just leave that to you?
Well, yeah. Some of it might depend on how you answer questions.
Okay.
I might weave things in.
Right.
It might not be a very pop culture-y episode.
Oh.
I know that saddens everyone.
I'm sure we can just bullshit some
And
stuff.
for the umpteenth time this episode, we apologise to our listeners.
Yeah, we're going to be saying that a lot.
Yeah. Sorry, Mum.
Does your mum listen to this?
Okay, first question. And I think this kind of there is a heavy pop culture element to this question because you see lots of examples of it in pop culture and you see examples where they say, no, this isn't real.
Oh, okay.
Is there such a thing as a love spell?
Oh, love spells.
Love spell.
God. Okay. But so hang on. So pop culture says there isn't.
I'm thinking specifically of Aladdin,
I
where the genie says, I can't make anyone fall in love with you.
Oh, right. I understand now.
Yeah. I mean, it's not quite. It's a different kind of magic.
So, yes, there are love spells. Absolutely. And yes, you can, from my perspective, remember at Magenta, we do tend to practice astral magic.
Mm-hmm.
So we can employ the resources of Venus, who is all about love and balance and relationships. You can certainly ask for Venus to help you in your spell work, but you will always, always, always have to apply your own ethical framework on top of what it is you are doing. And remember that humans have this thing called free will.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that you cannot change someone's behavior. Only they can change their behavior, whether it's to wind back on something they're doing or to move forward with an action that you want from them. It really has to come from them. So yes, there are love spells, but that's the, those are the kind of like the boundaries and the barriers for which you have to operate. Yeah. Because you're right, it does come up in pop culture. I don't see it coming up in pop culture to be saying it doesn't work. I see it. Yeah, because I see things like, right, I am really showing my age now, but going back to the film Supergirl.
Goodness gracious me. That is going back.
I know, so this is how old I am, people. So going back to the film Supergirl, which I'm sure not many people watched, to be fair.
That film. I had an irrational love of that film. Can't remember much about what happened in it, but I just remember I really liked it.
I remember the witch casting a spell on the boy that was in it. Now, this is going back some, so I know I don't remember any of the actors. I don't remember any of the characters. I don't really remember the story, but I remember it meant that Supergirl had to come and save the boy, and he was under a love spell that had been placed upon him. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and I remember as well that they had the same Jimmy Olsen as they had from the Superman films, because that was, continuity, and that her disguise was much better than Clark Kent's because she changed her hair colour.
Yeah.
So.
See, I'm writing down Supergirl for the show notes.
So that's interesting that you say that, because I think more recently pop culture has kind of shown love spells backfire. They don't work.
Oh, yeah.
You shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Which is it kind of chimes to your point about the ethical. Mm-hmm. If you do things without people knowing, that's not right. And it will come back on you, and these things never work out the way you think they should.
Mm-hmm. So where have you seen it backfiring?
I'm trying to think. I mean, definitely in Rick and Morty.
Okay.
But it always ends up with it being the wrong person falls in love with you, or their infatuation, their devotion is too extreme.
Oh, yes.
That it's overwhelming, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I can see examples in my head, but I can't think of...
Do you remember?
There's an episode of Supernatural.
Oh, right,
yeah. Yeah, where... what's her name?
Becky,
that's it. Becky does one on Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't work out well.
No. And do you remember the Buffy episode where Xander tries to get Cordelia to fall back in love with him, and actually it's all the women in the entire town?
That's what I was thinking of. Yes, that is what I was thinking of. It's always, it goes wrong. It's everyone rather than just... And I think that's what they do on Rick and Morty as well. It just, and they all start fighting over. Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to jump ahead then, actually, for our next question, because I think with the ethical elements and stuff, it might relate. So there was a couple of questions that we had in about the same sort of thing. How do I know if a spell hasn't worked? But the reason I linked to it now from what you just said is because someone was saying that they had done a spell. They felt kind of like quite euphoric at the point of doing the spell. And then not that long afterwards, they suddenly started getting headaches, not sleeping, didn't really feel very well. And they were thinking, actually, had the spell gone wrong. Now, I don't know the details of what they were doing.
Right, yeah.
But I wonder, given what you've just said, if maybe they were crossing some ethical lines and it's starting to impact.
It's entirely possible. So if they're not going to write in and say, I did this particular spell and this is what happened, what do I think? So I would just kind of take a pause for a second, just say, if you want to kind of unpack that a bit, then please write back. That's fine. We spend some time off recording to answer that. But certainly spells can cause what I might call like some sort of discombobulation within your own physiology. Because a lot of the time you might be working within kind of energies that exist. Now, that might be calling upon a deity, or it might be calling upon the energy of a planet, which is what we do here at Magenta. So thinking about all of that and how sort of not protected you are against that, but you kind of have to enter this universe cautiously. And I say that because I'm trying to go back to the one where we talk about divination. Everyone is always carrying around these 4 Claires inside them. And depending on which Claire you are more sensitive towards, you may be awakening that without actually kind of realizing that that is also what you are doing. So if you are clairsentient, you may be awakening all sorts of weird emotive feelings that are in you, that you may be carrying around other people's emotions that you don't realize actually they belong to other people. And it might cause physiological differences. You might get more headaches. You certainly might feel you might sleep less well than you had before. But if it's not that, then certainly have a think about the kind of magic that you are trying to practice. Is that coming up against your ethical framework somehow? Because that might tip you into something called cognitive dissonance, which is where your actions don't match up with your values and beliefs. And that can cause some real anxiety. It might not be a conscious anxiety. It might be an anxiety that you feel in the muscles or in the head. So cognitive dissonance, and, you can Google that. It's a very sciencey word, but you can Google that and just kind of understand where it is that now you've done this, what universe are you operating in? Is it the more psychological universe of cognitive dissonance because you've done something that maybe your values and beliefs don't align? Or is it more the kind of metaphysical universe of, am I awakening something inside me that perhaps I didn't realize was there, I guess.
Okay. So, going back to the bigger part, the other part of the question was more generic. How do I know if a spell hasn't worked? I suppose these kind of physiological reactions would be one sign, I guess.
It's not necessarily the sign that something hasn't worked. That's the thing. So when you're working within magic, it is important to visualize the outcome you are trying to achieve. And I think we've talked a little bit about this on the one about the psychology of magic. We talked about like the one that explains the point of meditation, how that actually visualizing the outcome can help you work through any success fear that you might have, actually. So if you want somebody, like for argument's sake, going back to the first question, if you wanted a relationship with somebody and then you tried to cast a spell to make that a thing, what does that actually look like? You've done that now, but is there something inside you that causes feelings of guilt, or you're not actually ready for that commitment, or actually they're in a relationship with someone else and perhaps you feel bad about maybe changing that situation for that person. So if you've got this fear of success, that might also be causing factors such as headaches and stress and whatever. So it's important when you're practicing magic to kind of work through that when you are visualizing the outcome. That's the kind of the point of, everyone saying, oh, visualize your outcome. It's to help you move through some of these processes. How do you know a spell hasn't worked? Well, the simple answer is you won't know the spell hasn't worked. And I say that because the universe is always, or whatever, insert deity of your choice. I call it universe. Other people will have a different noun, and that's fine. But the universe is always trying to give you what you want. Always. It's completely on your side. It's got your back. If it hasn't worked, in air quotes, think about, have you been looking for the signs, or have you just gone, it should be exactly like Disney says, and bippity boppity boo, where's my thing? Because no, it is not that simple. And this is some of the reason why we have this magic podcast that kind of overlays the pop culture rhetoric and over the top of it, because we're trying to smash through some of that and educate people as to what actually success looks like in magic. And it does not look like your fairy godmother comes down and turns your family in from a load of mice or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But what it does mean is looking for the signs, those meaningful coincidences that will have been there, but you may just be so kind of blinkered almost into the, I'm expecting magic to look like a certain thing, and it isn't. Mm-hmm. It isn't the thing that I visualized in my head, which to be fair, it may not work out exactly how you visualized it in your head, but it is getting there. It is getting there as fast as it can. Absolutely. And you have to be open to that. And I would urge people to not kind of try to recast, because that psychologically you're getting in your own way for, oh, actually, I don't want a car now. I want a pony. Oh, I don't want a pony. I want a house. Oh, I don't want a house. I want a boyfriend, or I want a girlfriend. You know what I mean? It's just chill, calm down.
Peter
It
Parker
is coming.
adding stuff into Doctor Strange's spell while he's casting it.
Yeah. We don't want that to happen. No. So definitely not.
I think you've started to answer, in fact, you probably have answered one of the other questions that I jumped over to get to that one, which was, how do I know my spell has worked?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's about looking for the signs, positive thinking, understanding and recognizing it when it comes back. We have talked about that previously.
Yeah, so the one about the psychology of magic, I know that we talk about that, and that's in season 2. And I think to a certain extent we talk about it on the one about meditation as well, just a little bit. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Couple of questions, so I'll try and smoosh them together around cleansing tools and gifts and things.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of people saying that they'd been given things from exes. They want to cleanse them so they can continue to use them. So I'm not sure if you have any views on that.
Right. So I'll go with cleansing first. So cleansing items that you've bought from a shop or that have been gifted to you, absolutely. I think it's probably fair. I don't want to bring the ick factor in, but certainly you might, if you went to buy a pair of jeans from a charity shop, you might want to run them through the washer before you put it on. Not that the shopkeeper won't have done that, but at least you've seen that it's done. Yeah. And I would say that about magical tools as well. So in terms of cleansing, cleanse them. You can use a variety of methods. You can use an air-based cleansing, which might involve incense or some sort of smoke activity. You can use a fire-based incense, which might include running it through a flame. Obviously, don't do that with books and paper, because then they will catch fire. You can use an earth-based cleanse, which might involve burying it in the sand or in the garden for a period of time if you're lucky enough to have a garden. Or you can use a water-based cleanse, which generally speaking, you ought to use some sort of natural source of water. And I say that and it sounds so loopy coming out of my mouth, because of course water is natural, but I don't include tap water in this. So natural source of water might include like a stream or a brook or a collection of rain water that you've gathered in some sort of object. But if you don't
so even like if you've got a water bottle or something.
A water bottle, yeah. But if you don't have access to any of that stuff, the natural spring water that you can just buy from the shop, that will do in a pinch. And basically you submerge or you pour over, so you've got like that running aspect. Mm-hmm. So you hold the container that the water is in, you pour it over, maybe it's a watering can, whatever. And that's how you cleanse your items. So that, and the reason why I invite people to do this is because you don't know who's been handling it or what their baggage has been as they have been looking around the shop.
Yeah.
And then the X factor on top of that. So how far back in time did the ex buy you the thing? I think would be my first question, because the ex buying you a gift and then giving it to you, that is now yours. They don't have a right to ask for that back because that is yours. That's yours now. But if they're buying you things after the breakup, that's when it can become infused with lots of extra baggage. So if your ex bought you a gift, they bought you that with love and kindness and they gave it to you. It was yours. It was given to you with love and kindness. Then I would think about maybe the issue is not about the tool. Maybe it's about the sort of the association with the tool, that actually my ex bought me this and now I don't like it. Those are all valid, and that they are worth considering, because obviously as a magical practitioner, you are working with the energies around you, and that might include your own. And if you're drawing on something that is now not pleasant for you, you're potentially bringing that into the work that you're trying to do. So if for whatever reason you can't move past the fact that X gave you this thing, then yeah, it's possibly time to donate that to another magical practitioner or put it in a box until you are able to move past it. There are rituals for moving past hard breakups, of course. So as a magical practitioner, one could also practice some magic for personal reasons, which is fine, as we discussed on using magic for personal reasons.
There's a podcast for every eventuality. That's cool. I mean, that makes sense. That feels like it's like the magical equivalent of this was our song or our film or whatever, and I used to love it and I can't listen to it anymore, I can't watch it anymore, or you know, my ex used to love this meal or this restaurant or whatever, and so it's the same sort of
absolutely. And to be honest, I feel the same. I have exes where there are whole sections of this country I can't go to because I have associations with it.
You have exes?
I have so many exes. No, that sounds worse than it is.
That does not sound good. Stick that in the show notes.
To be clear, there are not that many exes.
So would you say, so the other part of the question I think was something from the ex, cleansed it, still doesn't feel right. Is that kind of more, it's more you?
It's
and
potentially
your association
more you.
between the object and the ex rather than the object itself. And so maybe you should, that's where you put it to one side or give it away. Or,
You know, you can cleanse yourself. And I don't just mean with some nice soaps from the Body Shop. I mean, you can do the ritual for cleansing the tools on yourself. Okay, so it involves much the same thing, in the same way that you would buy something from the shop and then cleanse it before using. You basically treat yourself as a magical vessel that needs to work through some of this stuff. All the baggage that you've carried, you perform the cleansing. Again, I wouldn't advise a fire cleansing for this one, but yes, you can use a water-based one. Now, I know what I said about natural water, so if you can't go for a swim in the ocean or whatever, or the water around you has, clear signage that says, do not swim in here because you might die, don't do that either. But what you can do is run a nice bath and add some salt to it. So that's what you can do. Or you can use an air-based cleansing, which is, again, using incense or some sort of smoke tool. Or you can use an earth-based cleansing. I'm not suggesting you bury yourself in the ground, but what you can do is go for some forest bathing. Absolutely. This is dead simple, and it just involves one step in front of the other and being around some trees. And that's...
so you don't actually lie down on the floor.
You can.
But it's just being in nature, communing with nature. Giving yourself some time.
The trees are really good for this. So if you've got a coppice or some sort of forest or woods or whatever, head there and do forest bathing. Or you can do moon bathing, which basically is laying outside in the full moon. to cleanse yourself. And whilst you are out there, or whilst you're laying in the bath or whatever, you just work through the issues that you've got. Basically, it's how do I uncouple my negative beliefs? How do I separate the relationship that was from the relationship that now is? How do I move forward through these difficult emotions? And, we have meditations that allow people to work through personal garbage. I say that with all the love and kindness, but anybody who's got a personal issue, then there are meditations that we issue through the website that help people to do exactly this.
Cool. Okay. And just to clarify, when we say things like moonbathing and lying out and stuff, you don't need to be in your swimming costume or anything. Just normal clothes is fine.
Nobody needs to be naked to do any of this. So those websites and books that tell you you have to be naked, otherwise it's not going to... No, horse shit. You don't. You don't have to be naked.
Said a spokesman for Magenta School of Magic.
Yes, but on behalf of all magic everywhere.
All right, cool. Next one, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier on.
Oh no, my stupid Claire's in my head. They're just guessing what the questions are.
Fine. Deity work.
Yeah.
What is it and how do I do it?
Deity work is entirely personal. And it's not something I personally practice. Yes, I call upon external influences to help power magic that we practice here, but they're not deities. They are the celestial bodies of which I recognize that deities are connected to. For example, Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, they all have Roman and Greek gods connected to those planets, but it's not the gods I'm calling upon. It's the planet itself.
Right.
So deity work, absolutely personal choice. So that's where I'd start. I'd start with, what is it about working with a deity that speaks to me? And you might find, actually, I'm only interested in this because I think that's what other people are doing.
Sounds cool.
Maybe sounds cool, or maybe pop culture says, or maybe...
Let's summon a deity.
Exactly. Maybe it's some of that. And I personally did struggle with this for a while. I used to think, this was, donkey's years ago now, but I used to think, because so-and-so writes in their book about goddesses and, the oak king and all of this stuff, that somehow that's the only way to be magical. So that's what I must do. But it never felt in alignment with me. So I dropped that and actually felt so much better that I'm not trying to do something that doesn't align with who I am. So start there. Okay. And if you find actually, no, that does align with who I am absolutely trying to practice magic in a religious way. That's great. There are so many deities, so many. There's loads and loads and loads and loads. So you need to read some books and some websites, and you need to start there. Have a think about kind of the catch-all area. Is it a deity that's connected to prosperity or protection or nature or relationships or whatever? Start there. Or just have a general look across the entire cultural spectrum and use other deities from other cultures with sensitivity and acknowledgement, basically. But if you find that you are fine with what you're doing and you've understood and you've done all the research, then you are employing them to help you with magical practice in the same way that here at Magenta, we employ the celestial bodies to help in magical practice. So you would need to practice and create a philosophy or an art based around that deity and what it is that they can help you with, basically. And you can't ask them for stuff that they don't do, because no one likes that.
Well, no.
No one.
Speaking as someone who's often asked at his day job to do things or to talk about stuff that is not his responsibility, I can confirm that people do not like that.
And it's the same with deities. They don't like that either. They just roll their eyes and go, but that's not what I do.
Fair enough. You wouldn't ask Venus for a new car.
I would not. No. If I want a new car, I would ask someone like Jupiter to bring me the means.
Fair enough. Cool. Yeah. All right. I only got a couple more. And yeah, there's two again that are kind of connected a little bit. How do I specialize in a type of witchcraft?
Oh.
How do I know? I think, and apologies if I am putting words in the mouth of the listener who sent this in. I think it's more like, how do I know which specialism I should follow? Mm-hmm. And another question which felt connected was, is there such a thing as a snow witch?
Oh, snow witch. Yeah. Like Elsa.
Well, if you like.
I haven't seen that show.
If you like, show it's film.
Whatever.
Based on a classic story and completely turned around from the classic story because they wrote a really good song. So they decided to change the story. That's another podcast. No, I think it's more, there are areas of the world where snow is in abundance. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm surrounded by it, wouldn't it make sense that I use it? So is there such a thing as a snow witch?
Well, personally, I haven't heard of a snow witch. Doesn't mean there can't be one. You just might be the first person to give it vocabulary, basically. So yeah, go for it. I think you might want to just going on what I was saying before about deities, that it might be that your region of the world where snow is in abundance, there might be a lot of deities, connected to the way the weather moves in your part of the world. So it might be somewhere that you can start as a place, but it's always about research and how you might best incorporate the energy of water in its solid form, essentially. I think that's perfect. You just go off and you just explore. You might be on the cusp of inventing something new there.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Nice one. Go for it. And the other bit of the question was about specializing different types of witchcraft and how do I know where I should go?
All right.
Does relate to the one we did where we talked about the different types of magic, like hedge witches.
Yeah, that's true. So in season 2, we did sort of get into the different types of magic. And that's a place to start. It means reading and doing research.
Or listening to the podcast.
Yeah. So yeah. And it's looking at what the different types of magic are, and you will feel it. So you need to have some quiet space while you're doing this to sit and reflect on the research that you are doing. I'll put a link to the article in the show notes as well. So we do talk about the different types of magic in that. But basically, whether you prefer to practice ceremonial magic or whether you prefer to practice a more religious way of expressing it or what, you're going to have to sit down and go through the options. But pay attention to your body, pay attention to the way you feel when you are reading about it. For me, as I mentioned, I was trying to practice magic in a religious way before I stopped and went, this is not me. This feels really incongruent. I can either not be a magical person, which didn't feel right, or I need to find something else. So that was when I started to explore astral magic, and that felt so much better. So you will find it, but you can't just barge on ahead with, well, so-and-so, my friend, does it this way, and therefore I have to. Or, God, worse, internet says. The internet might be a place to start, but just obviously be careful because it's quite a toxic town hall over there. Just be careful and try not to get involved in things that culturally you ought not to, or spiritually don't align with who you are. Don't do stuff just because internet says.
Yeah, okay. I suppose, as well as the reading and the research and the listening to the podcast, there will be an element of trial and error, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like you said, you were practicing before you realised that this way isn't for me. So it might be that people have to try different ways for a little bit, and then before they can fully say, you know what, it sounded right, it sounded good, but in practice it's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I don't know if that shows up in pop culture, where you might get the hero of the story trying to practice magic in a certain way, but then they stop and try something else. I don't know.
I can't think of any, and also apologies to people who are watching rather than listening to the podcast. I'm having real trouble today. I have a very itchy eye. I'm not sure if there's something in it, but so apologies for you having to watch me wobble my eye about while I'm talking. And for those of you who are listening, good choice. No, I can't think of anything. I can't think of people. I mean, there's all examples of people doing spells and then not working, and then trying a different spell or that sort of thing, but not really practicing magic in a certain way.
No, I know. And obviously the books and films of the shows and the thing that we never talk about, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I don't know what happens in that.
Coming of age stories are fairly classic in trying to find your way. What's the right fit for you as an individual, that sort of thing. And, you know, I tried this vocation, or I tried this sport, or I tried this hobby, and and it's not for me, but this is the one, that sort of thing. That's fairly common, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's up there with Hero's Journey, I think, is one of the main stories to tell. All right, cool. Just about done.
Okay.
Last question, which, given how we are visited by animals at the moment from next door, felt like a good one.
All right.
Familiars. How do I find a familiar?
Okay, you don't. They find you. That's what makes them different to just pets. Pets are pets. You get them from the pet shop or the breeder or whatever, but it's the choice. You've gone there and you've gone, I like that one.
Yeah.
I'll have that one.
That's not a familiar.
That's not a familiar, no. A pet can't be turned into a familiar, but a familiar can be turned into a pet.
Right.
Familiars generally are animal helpers that seek you out. So you might, live in a place where there's stray dogs, stray cats, stray God knows what, raccoons. I don't know. We don't have raccoons, but I don't really understand the relationship between nature in other countries. But I'm sure it's a thing. I'm sure you can tame a raccoon. Maybe not. But yeah, these are animals that come and visit you because maybe you're on the start, or you're about to begin, or you're learning something. And this is the idea that the familiar can offer that emotional support whilst you are working through some stuff, or you're about to learn, or your magical journey is about to do a 90-degree or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they can pop up in your life at the beginning of your magical practice. Equally, if you are turning a corner in your development, maybe like we've just said, you've binned off one way of practicing magic in favour of another, they can pop up then. They can also pop up as your clairs develop. So if you're doing a lot of work around your intuition or your clairvoyance or whatever, they can pop up then. It's really bizarre, but yeah, it's when the animal adopts you. And it doesn't mean that they move into your house and they live with you. Does a bird regularly visit? Is it that? Do you have a lot of wildlife in your garden? Is it the neighbour's cat? Is it a dog that lives with someone else, but whenever you see it has that special affinity to you, won't leave your side? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that's now yours and you get to keep it. That's not their job. Their job is not to be a pet. Their job is to be that source of comfort and support.
So, without wanting to make you sound like Snow White,
right?
We do have birds that come and visit.
Yeah.
There is a lot of wildlife in the garden.
Yeah.
And the neighbour cats do come in and spend time.
They do.
Here.
To be clear, this is with the full knowledge of the neighbour.
Yes, the knowledge and consent.
Yes, we're not stealing animals.
Do you have a familiar?
Well, as you've held a mirror up now.
Do you have a lot?
I probably do, yeah. There's probably one of the visiting cats in particular that sticks much closer to me than any of the other cats that visit. Equally, there is a bird that will ask for food from me. So yeah, I possibly do have a familiar as ever. You know, we're always learning something. Just starting this podcast, starting the magic school, going on a journey of understanding the humanistic magic side of what we're doing. So yeah, I personally don't feel like, right, I've learned everything now. I'm the expert at everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe there was a point when those animals started to visit that I was developing, or my journey was doing a 90-degree turn or whatever, that they've recognised, she needs a bit more support, a bit more emotional help here. I'll just sit and be that emotional support animal while this is happening. Obviously, the birds don't like being touched, but they show their affections and support in other ways. Yeah, it's very rewarding. By
shouting at us.
Yeah, but
Where's my food?
It's very rewarding to go out there and connect with the wild animals that come and visit. Yeah. And that is part of it.
Well, there was a period as well where there were squirrels coming up and like eating
out of your hand. Yeah. Yes, I remember that.
Cool. All right. So there's last question, which is from me.
Oh.
And I was going to call myself Mr. Magenta, but then I realised that sounded awfully like Mr. Magick from the BBC show. I think it was BBC many, many years ago. Weird magic person who lived in a windmill with a little tuft of hair. Kind of like the bewitched nose twiggle. He did his thing with his hair. Anyway, so I'm not going to do that.
No, good. Cool story.
Thank you very much. I've got to shoehorn in some pop culture somewhere, otherwise what am I for? My question... And you don't have to answer it now.
Oh God, I feel really uncomfortable.
No, I'm sorry. It's what is sex magic?
Oh, for God's sake. Sex magic.
Maybe we should do an episode on that.
Okay, yes, fine. We will do an episode on what is sex magic. The one about sex magic.
Yeah. Because it's come up a few times and it sounds way dirtier than I'm told it actually is. So I was going to say let's get into it, but that sounds terrible as well.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Let's discuss that.
We will discuss that.
On the next episode.
All right. That will be our finale.
Look at that. We did an introduction. We said hello for the first time and we've trailed the next episode. It's almost like we're starting to realise how we should do this properly. 3 seasons in.
Yeah, let's do our best.
So professional.
So cool. Is that
all
was it. The questions?
It was a good batch of questions. I mean, they were a bit spell heavy, but that's all fine because it's what people want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And they didn't ask about any pop culture stuff. Okay, well, that's fine. That's
but
cool.
You can do if you'd like to. That's fine. We can turn this into a fully pop culture podcast with some magic.
Is that everything? Did we do everything?
We did.
Great.
Cool.
Then that's it. Oh, do you want to say it? Okay, that's it.
We almost said it together then.
That's it. That's our show. So that's it. That's our show. If you liked it, give us a rating and review. Share with others. Tell your friends.
You'll find all our contact stuff over at magentaschoolofmagic.com, including our social media and links to the Magic School itself.